You're listening to On the Record.
The Hawaiian Ride for Youth raises funds for Youth Focus to support young people to be mentally healthy. This is your chance to register your interest to ride. Join 160 inspirational Western Australians in cycling 700 kilometres from Albany to Perth next March to raise funds and awareness to help young people thrive. Are you up for the challenge? Register your interest at rideforyouth.com.au. Youth Focus sponsors RTRFM.
Before the leap, we heard from Captain Planet there with Big Man. Well, how would you perform as a cybersecurity monitor? Staring for hours on end at a screen, keeping watch for a security breach. I know I would be a complete failure, but for those that are up to the task, how long can they perform at an adequate level for? What toll does remaining motionless whilst ultra-vigilant take on the individual and their reliability to detect a security issue? ECU's Dr. Oliver Guidetti has been researching exactly that and joins us now. Good morning, Oliver.
Good morning, mate. Thank you for having me on.
That's a pleasure. Well, could you give us an idea of the work that people you study do? My picture is made up of too many movies to be helpful, of, screens with numbers dribbling down them and, there it is.
Well, it's not too far from what it actually what that actually is. It essentially involves operators looking at large numbers of computer monitors full of essentially large sets of maths that they have to infer whether or not an attack is being had.
When you're talking about a lot of screens, how many screens are we talking here?
It varies, but the most I've seen at a time is 7.
For one person?
For one person, yeah. So it's a complicated mess of a thing to try and work out if there's a problem, if you're being attacked, and then working out how to solve it as well. So it does take quite a large toll on the operator, and how we design those systems as well also has a massive impact on how well they can function on the tools.
Well, I mean, you're staring at up to 7 screens, which I cannot imagine doing. How long would they expect a person to do that for? Like, is that an 8-hour shift?
Well, it varies. It does vary from organisation to organisation. The shortest amount of time I've seen is 2 hours on, 2 hours off. And the longest one will be an 8-hour long shift of them performing that task of threat monitoring.
So by the time you're getting to the end of those 8 hours of 2 hours on, 2 hours off, how effective are you getting?
You're zonked by after the first 20 minutes. It really depletes your brain's ability to pay attention quite quickly. So at the end of 8 hours, it really comes down to the experience of the operator when they're operating under those conditions for that amount of time. How experienced they are really kicks in.
Before we get to the testing, I'm curious, what do they look like at the end of 8 hours? The individuals must be frazzled.
Yeah, they absolutely are. The participants in my study look like they'd gotten off of an 8-hour-long flight.
That's every day.
Yeah. It's quite a burdensome task to do.
I mean, your background's in psychology. I mean, does this sort of like a level of exertion relate to a physical level of exertion in terms of how much it'd wear a person out?
Yeah, it absolutely does. So your brain uses around about 20% of your body's energy. But in this sort of work, it's actually a lot more about the fat cells in your brain, and we call them astrocytes. So that first 20 minutes, though, it sort of acts like a spare fuel tank. Now, you can access that spare fuel tank and you can perform a lot, at a peak 100% capacity. But once you've depleted that spare fuel tank, it doesn't get refilled until you stop the task. So You're sort of left with whatever's in your blood.
Okay. So you're lining yourself up for fatigue pretty quickly.
It does happen, yeah.
So just to get an idea, so you've got like we imagine on the screen, all these numbers dribbling down. So are you saying like within all these numbers on 7 screens, they've got to look for a character that's out of place?
It can be that way. It can be the case that, so for example, an IP address, if an IP address has got a single digit off, that could be an indicator that someone's trying to attack something that you thought was secure. Or another example is if a version number 10.0.1.5.2, it might be just that last version, that the last digit might make the entire difference.
Right. Wow. Okay. And I mean, I cannot imagine the level of concentration that it would take to keep scanning 7 screens. How do you go about, testing them without the process itself being invasive? I mean, God, I've done a sleep apnea test and that was bad enough.
Well, the way that I ended up doing it is I made a simulator for this type of task.
So they weren't actually looking for the rest of the...
No. Well, one of the things I've learned early on is if you're doing science, stay out of the way of the professionals. So I gave them a simulator for it.
Yep.
And then I attached a brain scanner to them as they were performing this simulated version of the task. And what I had worked out was that different ways of composing that simulator either led them to improve over time or get worse over time. And there was a specific, you could tell based on differences in what we were measuring in their brain waves, whether they were getting better or worse. And that allows you to sort of cut through all of that complexity and work out how that analyst is actually going. Are they getting better over time or not? You can read it in their body. And that was really cool, I found.
Yeah, I mean, this sort of research had its birth in the airline industry, I believe. I mean, which is pretty cool. It's nice to know that somebody's actually paying attention to how much pilots are paying attention.
Well, you definitely don't want things going wrong up there, I suppose. No, it actually began at the end of the war with the British radar operators.
Right.
Who they would, so they had a very sort of similar task, like paying attention to something quite monotonous, quite repetitive for prolonged periods of time.
Yeah.
And the exact same thing would happen. They would deplete all of that energy, and then they would start to make mistakes, which you can't have in a radar operator.
Yeah. As you can imagine. So we've known for quite a while then that there's a substantial degradation in somebody's attention span. I'm curious, why haven't they downgraded the exposure that someone has to that work with that knowledge? Has there been any moves to do that?
Essentially, that's a workforce shortage problem. So there is a massive cyber workforce shortage. So when you want to downgrade that, you want to decrease the level of load on the individual, you need more boots on the ground to do that. So institutions like ECU, where we've got a really robust and matured cybersecurity master's program, that's helping to contribute to that. But it's certainly the case that we need much more people in the space operating. And as far as downgrading it, you can also augment how burdensome it is by other methods. You can redesign software so that it's not as much of a deluge of information at once. You can use AI as another method of doing that to sort of augment the cyber operator's capability at the same time. So it's sort of think of it like a cyber Siri.
Right, yeah. Like a partner just sort of helping you out. Because obviously, I mean, being AI, if it's a hack issue, then there's a possibility of getting around the AI as well, yeah.
That's a tricky one because you can't crack an AI open and work out how it works, especially with the more generative, these ChatGPT types of ones. So there are hacking risks with AI, certainly, but it's sort of like in Harry Potter, you have defense against the dark arts. So you have the ability to use these tools for good, but also you want to be able to use them for good so you can work out how the hackers might use them as well.
Knowing all that they know within the industry, how effective do those actually performing the task, how effective do they feel they are in performing that task?
That's interesting, how effective they feel that they are. It really comes down to how experienced they are. So, for example, during a cyber incident, when it's quite a how shall I phrase it? It's quite an urgent situation where decisions can have major sort of ramifications for businesses. They have to, the more experienced they are, the more they're able to operate in a very cool, calm and collected way. So they can make those difficult choices through all of that complex information and then report it back. So the amount of experience they get does absolutely have quite an impact on them.
Well, I mean, just listening to you talk about that makes me think about the external pressures that would be on not to screw up.
Oh, yeah.
Because the inattention, that momentary inattention could be quite costly.
Oh, it certainly is the case. But what I sort of gave voice to with my research is the fact that it's a lapse in attention is not necessarily at all anything to do with how motivated you are. They're quite motivated, as would be the aircraft operators or the World War II radar operators. It's much more physiological than that. They're lapsing in attention because the task has just drained their brain's capacity to sustain attention. It's quite a biophysical process before it's anything to do with motivation. So that pressure as well, it almost means that the operator has to essentially make peace with the fact that they are human. And I suppose the people that design the systems that they use, we have to also appreciate that they're human and design systems that are more usable for them in the sense.
That is really curious, because I was just thinking, like, you must be incredibly aware now with that research of other industries that require this kind of attention, where something as rudimentary as safety could be improved by having this sort of objective knowledge about someone's performance over a time period.
Oh, absolutely. So I take a very biophysical perspective to things, because if you can measure it in the body, it's quite robust. And so these will be issues that affect things like mining, things like the space industry as well. Any operation that sort of runs 24 hours, you're going to see the same sort of bodily mechanisms kind of trip you up as well. So with the research that I've done, especially some of the more theoretical work, it doesn't just explain why things are happening. It gives you a ground up from the cell in your brain up to the behavior. And when you understand that complete chain of information, it gives you more entry points to help, as it were. So yeah, it's certainly a field of work that I would love to take to other industries as well.
Well, it's something employers should actually be aware of, because it demonstrates that there's more to be gained from treating the workforce with respect, because you're going to get the most out of it over a longer period of time. There's no point flogging a horse for 8 hours when that's not going to be appropriate.
Well, that's a great analogy. It's not so much it's a horse. It's like the operators in this space, they're a lot more like elite athletes. And if you want elite performance out of an elite athlete, you have to treat them like an elite athlete. And that means looking at everything as a whole as well. So it's looking at diet, it's looking at sleep, it's looking at the circadian rhythm. Your sleep cycle will affect this. So for example, if you're working in a security operations room and your shift goes through the night, you're on the red eye shift, well, your employer should probably be taking into account the fact that your brain is telling you to go to sleep at that particular point in time.
Yes.
And you can't have peak performance without accommodating that feature of the task. And there are ways of sort of getting around it. So, for example, using certain kinds of lighting in a security operations room, making sure it's not dark, making sure one of my favorite hacks, I suppose, is jelly beans.
Jelly beans.
Jelly beans.
A little bit of a sugar burst.
A little bit of a sugar burst. Get that into the bloodstream.
Yeah.
And it picks up a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, a hot tip. I'm going to stick with that one, because I do love a jelly bean, except for the black ones. That licorice taste just doesn't work for me. Yeah, there you go. Jelly beans, folks, is the way to get that little prop at the end of the shift, right?
Something to that effect. Yeah, that's another thing you sort of see is the sort of snacks that people will have in a SOC. They're quite a thing of their own nature. There's a lot of Red Bull, a lot of things like Mountain Dew, high sugar, high caffeine, for that really sharp response. And it's always interested me that they've worked out a way of sort of naturally mitigating that physical effect with these sorts of snacks. Long term, that can have there's better tooling out there that you could use.
But short term, that'll get you over the line a little.
Oh, it'll make you feel good as well. So and that's definitely part of the problem.
What's the best way to recover for any of us? I mean, you've had a hell stressful day. It is one of those demanding days, and you've got to the end of it. Tomorrow you're going to be totally flaked.
Smashed, yeah.
What's the best way to get those fatty tissues in the brain recharged?
Yeah, well, I suppose there's a couple of things. The first thing is to make sure that you're eating that your diet contains enough carbohydrates and fats. And I would say that the second way of doing it is to ensure that your sleep is completely optimized. 8 solid hours a night without fail. Because if you're just a little bit sleep deprived, that's going to completely sort of impair your brain's ability from like right at the center of I suppose the part of the brain that performs this sort of work is from that point upwards throughout the chain. It's going to impair your ability. So sleep is a huge factor here for it as well. Another thing you can also consider is making sure that your shift timing matches with you.
Yeah.
as well. Because if your employer wants peak performance and you're not a morning person, don't work a morning shift. But then that harks back to the problem that you were suggesting earlier, which is how do you reduce the load? By having more people on the team, you can make those sorts of flexible decisions in staffing as well. So you want peak performance, you've got to pay for it.
Yeah, and obviously diet sounds like it's really important, but dieting, steer away from.
I suppose nutrition is the better word. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely so.
Doctor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I think it's a deeply interesting area of performance that, it affects us all. We've all got to concentrate at some point. Good luck with the implication of those studies.
Thank you so much, mate.
That was Dr. Olive Guidetti from ECE talking to us there about research into, cybersecurity workers and how well they can perform over a period of time. Well, and essentially, it's about how all of us can perform. I'm up for a bit of a rest after 2 hours and I'll be getting it at 11 o'clock. But this is Genesis Owusu off the album Smiling with No Teeth. Waiting on you.